Welcome back. I wanted to talk today about how you feel about yourself, and more specifically, do you believe that you're enough? Might also say, do you believe that you're good enough? So just tune into that for a moment. Most of us have some level of self doubt. Most of us feel insecure about different things about ourselves. So when you tune into that, and then think about what your life is like, your day to day life, how you spend your time, maybe what your relationships are like. Maybe if you're a parent, you have a partner, you have a work environment with colleagues. There's many other, obviously, examples, but just to start kind of in general with those. If you knew you were enough, meaning you're feeling fairly good about yourself, which does not mean you're perfect. It's almost actually, I don't need to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, and having some acceptance about that. And we might go up and down as far as the levels of this every day, because we might be feeling pretty good until someone says or does, or we think about something that kind of serves as sort of a trigger, and then it brings up the deep beliefs about self, the doubts and things like that. So if you look at how your life is now, and in reference to what you believe about yourself being enough or good enough, whichever one fits better for you. And then imagine if your level of knowing that you are enough, that you're good enough, was even higher. If you felt a level of self-confidence, even in your imperfection, that just believing that there's no such thing as perfection, there's no such thing as not being good enough, let's say, if that were higher, what would your life be like then? Would you still be in the job or career you're in? Would you be in the relationships you're in? And if you would, maybe even you would just be wanting to engage differently. Or how would your behavior change if you knew you were enough? Maybe we're talking about self-acceptance, acknowledging how we feel, and not with also believing the thoughts that come in about how we're not good enough, because that will generate uncomfortable feelings, sadness, guilt, shame, and all kinds of emotions that will come in because of how we don't feel we're enough. And usually the believing we're not enough comes with, I could do this and this and this better, or I did these things in the past and I regret those things that I did. We all make what we can call mistakes. But what if we don't even really make mistakes? I mean, yeah, we do things that if we would have thought it through beforehand, or if we weren't, a lot of things that we do impulsively they're like reactions. And that's when something pushes a button, also known as kind of getting triggered at different levels. So if anytime we're reacting, that's just a knee-jerk response, not a well thought out, thoughtful, loving response. That's not even the truth of who we are, if we think about that for a moment. And so I know when I'm more calm, I'm more grounded. Doesn't mean things are perfect. It's great when I'm, right? If you're happy, most things feel pretty great, right? Kind of flying high. But then someone can say something, you could read something that can so-called bring you down. A lot of us that are more sensitive I'm pretty sensitive. Certain things will really, really feel sad or disturbing or worrisome to me. And that's okay because we're human. We're not meant to be numb. So there's that. But I am now so aware that how I behave, which comes in relation to what I'm feeling, it can be more in alignment with how I'm feeling when I'm more calm and peaceful, right? Then things feel pretty easy. It's when we start getting ramped up, not feeling great about ourselves in the world, and then how we behave from that space, if we're not consciously choosing that. See, lots of times we believe we have no control because we're reacting. And when you're ramped up, the frontal lobe of your brain is going offline. They call it fight, flight, the fight, flight response. There's fight, flight, freeze, and then there's fight, flight, freeze, fawn. There's a lot of descriptors of these responses, and they're all to indicate this is going offline. We're going into a survival mode response. And it means literally for survival. Then we're not that we're unconscious, but we're not pausing to consider, oh, I'm getting triggered. What do I need to do right now? Right? We can go 0 to 10. It can feel like that, doesn't it? 0 to 10 within a couple seconds, depending on what the external stimulus is. So I like to talk about these things because, for one, we have a choice. We don't have to live in reaction to everything. And if you have awareness of what you know and believe about yourself in the way of, am I enough? And what does that even mean, am I enough? So really what we do is we're comparing ourselves to others to decide or determine I'm enough. And that goes way back to childhood. That goes way back to teachers, or just what type of culture did we grow up in? And it's going to be different. It can be very, very different. There might be some commonalities. I'm in the United States. I think there's some commonalities, but still, there's no one way we were all raised. But there's some version of what, I don't even know if the term's still used, the American dream. I don't really like that reference, but it's just to make a point here that everything, if we're doing things right and proper and all of that, then it's a certain order. And so I was raised during a time, not just the time, but it was you go to school, graduate high school, decide what you want to do. And I was encouraged to do something I loved, which I'm really grateful for that. Still took me a while to get here, but, and it did require college. But side note, college isn't for everybody. And I think nowadays, people are getting more aware that don't just automatically assume we're going to college with all the amount of money that it costs. It's like, if it's for you, that's great. But there's lots of other options. And go through those steps. Then you get married. Then you have kids. Or maybe then you get married. Then you buy a house, right? There's all these shoulds in this order of things. And then we all come to believe then I'm not good enough and I'm doing it wrong. Because I didn't get married before I got pregnant. I didn't go to college. I had kids. Then I want to go back to college. I'm like, who says there's an order? Why are we buying into that? So if you have a level of awareness about this, maybe this is stuff you're already thinking about, maybe some of these things you're hearing for the first time. And I just encourage you to just notice how you feel about some of these concepts. Only you are going to know what's right for you. No one else can tell you that. No one should be telling you that. And if we look outside ourselves for answers, the answer you get is going to vary depending on who you ask. And we so want love and approval, but we can't connect with the self-love that I think is inherent. I think we We have the natural capacity for self-love. We are not taught that. It's not usually modeled for us. Maybe it has been for you. Awesome if it has. But a lot of times it's not. We're not taught, hey, sit, take a few breaths, really connect with how you're feeling, check in with what you feel you need, those kinds of things. And anyone who goes to therapy or even in coaching paradigms, it's being taught. It's being taught, and it's life-changing. My life changed when I started prioritizing myself and not going to everyone else for advice all the time about everything. I used to do it about everything. And I was like, wow, if I ask 5 people, and really probably what I was looking for, subconsciously speaking, I was looking for validation that what I was thinking was on the right track. And then it's okay to go move forward. But no one, I did come to realize no one knows what's right for me but me. And I might not even know that, right? I mean, it can take a process and time to figure that out. And what is for my best interests is not what my ego mind is going to tell me. Because that's the thing that's going to look outside myself. It wants to keep me safe. It wants to look good. And so looking good in front of others, it has served a purpose for me, but that was more survival. And I'm now all about thriving. I just want to be authentic, be kind, be respectful, flowing from the compassionate heart space that I emanate from. And everything that comes from that space, I'm going to feel pretty good about, even in its imperfection, because I'm doing the best that I can. My intention is to never do any harm to anyone. If something I say or do has that impact, and certainly if it's someone who I'm working with or a friend, I invite that to be shared with me. And let's talk about it. I'm going to hear you. And most of the time, it's just something that needed to get clarified. There was confusion. Because none of us can control how other people hear what we say. It's dependent on our life history, how we view the world. So I can hear one thing and you can hear the same thing, and it's not going to be interpreted the same way at all. And so this is where too, I take ownership of my feelings. If someone says something that I feel offended in response to, that's my response. And depending on who that person is and what the relationship is, I may or may not feel like I want to bring it to their attention. I knew when I was younger, I would blame other people for how I felt. So then they had to change, apologize, or whatever it was I believed that I needed so I could be okay. And now I know, for one, it never worked. And two, that's just still puts the power outside myself. If I have a feeling, it's mine. No one controls me. No one controls me. I control where I focus, and I'm not a robot. I feel things. But now I look inward instead of immediately, wanting to go out and make other people change so I can be okay. So if this resonates for you, I invite you to comment with any questions or just comments that you have. And I invite you to reach out if you would like to work with me. Can create a program that will be individualized for you. And we start right where you're at, because there's nothing wrong with you. But if you're struggling, you're not feeling good, and you want to look at looking at it from a different angle, then I invite you to reach out. And thank you so much. And I will see you around the next video. Okay.